Deleted session, July 7, 1973. Now, good evening, and I will get to your questions this evening. First, there are several points I want to make. You forget Rupert's literal-mindedness, and you overlook it. He can use it to advantage. These beliefs, for the reasons you are uncovering, led him to believe he was inferior in the physical arena, and so he withdrew from it. The core beliefs and the resulting subsidiary beliefs are interrelated and work back to back, one to the other. The literal-mindedness applies. That is why the dancing is important. There is a difference between saying we danced to Rupert regardless of how well he danced, and the belief that he could not dance at all. True, that is a subsidiary issue, but it is one where he has insisted upon keeping some physical freedom open. That freedom is there, and has been applied in other areas that are not so apparent, and has helped both his attitude and health. The dancing then, each time is a positive issue, and acts to weaken the other beliefs, and stands as a contrast. It has been very important that that arena was left clear to some extent. Now, any other physical arena of that kind, opened, is highly beneficial because of that literal-mindedness. And each time this happens, the predominating beliefs are to that extent weakened. There is something else that he can do. He has proven it to himself. Therefore, he is free to move in that regard. The dancing was left open to some extent because it was not a daytime activity that conflicted with his other beliefs so directly. Give us a moment. Use that power that you have, and it is multiplied. Use the freedom that you have, and it is multiplied. You are, Joseph, now able to see many of Rupert's negative concepts, but you are blind still to many of your own. The feeling and belief in freedom must come before its physical manifestation, and this regardless of any beliefs to the contrary. If you act upon a belief in freedom, exert it, then it will automatically show you, by contrast, that the prior belief in lack of freedom was not in basic terms realistic. The prior belief will be chipped away to that extent. At the same time, you must, of course, work at understanding the prior belief, but at the same time, you must make efforts to act according to the new one that you want. Your life is not, and I repeat, not as limited as you believe it is. You are not using the freedoms that you have. These freedoms used, particularly in view of Rupert's literal-mindedness, would do much to weaken the beliefs in powerlessness that exist. As a result, then, of other beliefs, Rupert withdrew from the challenges of physical activity. Simply deciding on a conscious level to re-enter that arena in his present state shows in itself a change of belief, for before he did not want to try, and considered it a threat to his work. To some extent he still does, but he is beginning to understand and is willing to enter that arena. He wants to enter it, and there is the important change in belief that has occurred. He is still frightened and will be worried that he become too involved in it, but he is willing to handle that on a conscious level now, which is another important change in beliefs. Before he did not believe he could handle that consciously, so it is important, not that you go camping or not go camping, but that you realize the freedoms that you have. Use them, encourage any physical ideas of that nature that he has, and do not make him feel inadequate to try. He feels inadequate enough in that regard. Give us a moment. You who do not have the physical difficulty should now make an effort to initiate such things on your own. Rupert realizes that he must no longer structure his life through his symptoms. You must realize that also, for there your ideas of limitation simply prolong them. Before we get to your questions, if you want any more sessions from me on this matter, then each of you are to keep a list of any improvements you notice in Rupert's condition. You may not notice the same things. Your lists do not have to coincide, but you are each to keep such a list. Is that agreed upon? Ralph said, yes. They said, you are both asking me for help, so I insist upon that list. And I also insist that each of you make an honest effort to stop structuring your present experience according to Rupert's symptoms, and as much as possible leave them out of your plans. Such structuring impedes your progress to a large degree, and prevents improvements that could occur. I have told you about the importance of imagination, both in building up and destroying beliefs, but you still do not understand completely. With Rupert's literal-mindedness, again, there is a big difference, a vital one, between freely imagining a trailer trip, which then becomes a probable beneficial reality, and being told it will not work. You do not understand the alterations in beliefs involved that even led him, for example, to think of land mobility, and how cleverly the idea of work and mobility were combined, or the attempt at correlation involved. The same applies to the correlate body image, its significance escaping both of you largely, where Rupert was seeing himself with a body image combining power, agility, and weight. It is precisely the challenge of things like dancing, when he is in poor shape, but coming through when others are watching, or a trailer trip, or riding a bicycle, when it seems impossible, or climbing a tree, that has the imaginative literal qualities that inspires him to change beliefs, whether or not those issues in that way make sense to you. In trying to show him his realistic condition in the face of such ideas, you end up by making him believe also that you are unrealistic, stupid, and that he should not need challenges, but only the simple joy of walking across the floor. He went to an extreme, cutting out physical distractions because he believed that he had to. He was afraid that he would go to the extreme in the other direction. Now he is ready to open up. His beliefs are changing, but in the context of that change, the challenge of extremes still appeals to him. It is this that you have not understood. For that matter, neither has he. The karate image for him is a good one, far more evocative, intuitive, and powerful than his ideas say of doing exercise, for it combines for him intuitive understanding with physical strength and agility. Do you want a break before your questions? Ra said, no. They said, number one also shows your own attitudes, for he is not continuing to lose weight. It stabilized. The karate image will now help him gain, and helped him correlate his ideas of creativity with a different kind of image than he has had before. Your eating arrangement, Ralph noted, in apartment 5. they said, occurred and in its way helped to stop the loss of weight. The dress was worn deliberately. He was ashamed to be seen in it, and yet it served a beneficial purpose, for his own love of his body will automatically cause it to gain weight. His pride will do it for him. He was afraid it would make you feel worse. Yet, the continuing cover-up physically denies the needed feedback that would be quite automatic, as he looks into a mirror, for example, and knows well he needs to gain more weight. This, you see, is connected with the trailer idea, and I am telling you because you still do not understand the importance of belief and imagination combined. He has gone ahead despite, in this case, your negative interpretation and seeing himself under certain conditions, traveling in a trailer, riding granted, but in front of strangers, in a bathing suit or shorts, and he does not want to look like a mourning witch. So already in his mind, he is gaining weight, seeing himself fairly agile, but he felt this was in spite of your attitudes, not with your enthusiasm or understanding. He felt that in your word and interpretation, his ideas were Pollyanna, but I tell you that is practical creativity, and it can wipe out many negative beliefs more in a moment than you can realize. We will be getting into the second question, which is much more difficult and detailed. Take a break or raise your hand and get him a beer while I leave him in trance. Take your choice. Rob said, we'll take the break. They said, you must not, either of you, concentrate on the problem in your good intentions as you try to solve it. It then becomes the prime reality of concentration. The more you can minimize it in your minds, the quicker its solution. The times that Ruber managed rather considerable improvements, even in the face of strong negative beliefs, were times when he managed to convince himself against all objective evidence that there was nothing wrong with him physically but habitual stiffness. That belief minimized the seeming impediments, allowed greater physical freedom that in its turn, by contrast, began to lessen the preliminary negative beliefs. That was the summer of which we have spoken, and the conditions did not continue for the reasons given. When you imagine trips or any physical activity and carry them out, you are concentrating upon freedom, not limitations, and then you have those freedoms to build upon. Now, with the difficulty, Ruber did this in his literal manner, while working with the preliminary beliefs at the same time. Give us a moment. I mentioned and suggested his rising very early for several reasons, knowing full well a challenge and resistance would result. The morning stiffness has to do now with subsidiary beliefs and expectations, and also with the natural condition of the body in its present shape. Give us time. His idea of work on one level is connected with the working day. His problem, the artificial dilemma that exists in the daylight hours as to how to spend the time, and the fear that ordinary distractions will take him from his work. The dilemma does not exist at night or very early in the morning. He feels far freer, and any work done before the ordinary day begins gives him a sense of physical freedom. Such a situation automatically provides no distractions and a resulting lack of stress. He is freer physically than to work at such times. Intuitively, the connection between pleasure, creative activity, and the mundane world of having to make money, which it is to some extent broken. When he gets up ahead of you, he feels gleeful. He has put one over on you for a change, where usually he sees you as coming out ahead in that regard. He is also relieved that you do not see him immediately, and this alone lessens the stress, for he is afraid that his condition blankens your morning. He could quite happily accept your early rising, but he felt that you poked fun at him. When he spoke of working at night or rising early, again not understanding how he could utilize each trait. For some time until recently, he was afraid, as mentioned, that his body could not recuperate. That is why any physical achievement or normal activity is to be encouraged. The belief behind all of this is simple, and you have it, that all of his energy, concentration, and attention has to be devoted to his work. Because he is so little-minded, this was his interpretation of it. He did not believe he could consciously discipline himself as he thought you did. When this became entwined with your way of life and financial conditions, he dug in deeper. At the same time, he did not want you to spend any more time away from your own work. He cut out more and more stimuli toward distraction. In the night time or early morning, there is no distraction from the outside, so at that level you lessen the stress, and the rubber is freer. As long as you are working with primary beliefs, this can be an excellent method of accelerating advances while reducing stress. It would not be any solution if the beliefs were not faced, but with that understanding, it can facilitate improvements. Enough sleep is important when beginning. However, or of course, he will simply want to sleep through. In the ordinary schedule, he becomes tired and blue toward the end of the afternoon if he feels that he has not done enough work. Now, some of this is connected with ideas of sex in earlier years. Adolescence. If a male writer or artist had to work to develop his abilities, then a woman had to work twice as hard. You also picked, of course, a woman you knew would not want children, but Ruber felt a division between his biological nature and his art back then. He has felt a love for wherever you lived, and an abiding love for you, but also some conflicts involving the housewifely chores and the writing. You help often, and have always done so, but he felt that because of the male-female relationship, any help you gave was something he should be thankful for, that you were doing it out of the extra goodness of your heart, that he should not have to be grateful. Give us time. A strong impeding belief is the one that the body could not any longer perform no matter what he did, and this largely was the result of a concentration upon negative aspects. That is why any physical achievements are important. You are correct, however. The badminton was dropped because it succeeded so well, but also because Ruber was not able then to face the dilemma between the accelerated motion in the game and the slow motion otherwise. It served a purpose, showing him what his body was capable of, and raises the question of why he was not using it. In all this, I must tell you, however, that you both do still concentrate upon the negative element, and ignore the power of anticipation and its values in changing beliefs. Ruber must assure himself that he can perform adequately physically, that this is physically possible, and then that he can do it while using his full abilities as a writer, as a creative person. Take your break. Now, the resistances are two. The most important one is that Rupert must make a conscious effort not only to alter his habits, but to handle what he thinks of now as distractions by conscious effort, the changing of a pattern, rather than by unconscious limitations on the body. So, of course, a dilemma is implied. Besides this, when beginning such a venture, I must be allowed for one waking sleep patterns to be adopted. The eating patterns also, and he will want to eat more. But such change represents at his level of behavior a definite attempt to substitute conscious alterations to seek the same end. Some resistance then can be expected. The method is important in that it is one alternate way, represents a conscious effort at solving the problem in a different way, and provides less stress while the preliminary beliefs are worked on. I will give you more on the preliminary beliefs. The important thing about them, however, is that Rupert, though they were a proper method of achieving certain ends, he now realizes they were not. With your help, other alternates can be used. Working together here, Ram noted in apartment 5, they said in the day is also one. It also provides Rupert, however, with constant stress, as he becomes consciously aware of other distractions in his turns. Physically wishes to do things that come in conflict with his staying at his table. Before, he was even unaware of what he was blocking out. The desire to move, to wash a window, to go outdoors. The procedure I suggested was simply meant as an intermediary, handy method that would allow him to realize he could handle the matter in other ways. The method of itself would also be illuminating enough in many areas to help release him from other beliefs. The effort required is considerable in a way, yet the knowledge that he could make the effort would be important. He does have a need for people and for normal interactions that is being inhibited. He is also still worried about you. Should he suddenly decide he feels like going on a shopping expedition in the middle of the afternoon, what would your reaction be? You would not want to lose the time. I will end the session, but I will have more, providing you to follow through. Ra said, okay. They said, I bid you then a fond good evening. Ra said, the same to you, says, thank you and good night.